Hey, so I am super excited today to talk to Chris Logan. And this is the Realtors of Faith YouTube channel along with the Realtors of Faith podcast. So we are super excited just to chat today. I can't really wait to talk to Chris about what God's doing in his life and hear a little bit of his testimony, but also to learn about virtual wholesaling, because this is something, honestly, for being in the business 30 years, I don't know a lot about. So I can't wait to learn myself and to teach our audience really what God has blessed Chris with. And he is the founder of Virtual Wholesaling Made Simple. It's an online community and coaching program. He's got over 10 years in this business. He's done over 600 deals under his belt. He's passionate about showing others how to break free from the rat race and create the financial freedom that we all look for and that we all deserve. So Chris, thanks for being on today. I appreciate it.
Ryan, thanks for having me, man. I'm really looking forward to this. And you got an amazing thing going. And I love how you incorporate faith in business. So I'm pumped.
Well, thank you, man. Thank you. That's really what connected us initially was that. So,
Yeah.
hey, Chris, just share a little bit about your journey, kind of how you got started in real estate and specifically virtual wholesaling.
Sure. Yeah, great question. So I got started in real estate like a lot of people, right? You have a dream and a desire to be successful in real estate, but you're just not really sure like what direction to go. There's a million different ways, I'm sure you know, to make money in real estate, right? But after church one Sunday, a friend of mine recommended me a book. I knew he was successful, but I didn't know he was like in real estate or anything like that. And I just asked if he could point me in the right direction. So he recommended me the book Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And that book changed everything for me. I finished the book. I stayed up till like 3 a.m. in the morning reading it that night after I went to Barnes and Noble and bought it. And my life was changed ever since. I was like, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. I just never really identified with the, work until you're 65 and then retire in corporate America. My dad was always very entrepreneurial, so it's always just kind of been in my blood, I guess, in my family. And so I was at my girlfriend's house, who's now my wife, and I was checking my email and I saw a banner ad saying Robert Kiyosaki was coming to Tampa. So I was like, shoot, I'm going to go meet this guy, shake his hand, tell him how much his book has changed my life. And I didn't want to go by myself, so I asked my girlfriend at the time to come with me. So we went to this 3-day event, and on the third day, they showed us all the different ways you could make money in real estate, right? So they took out like a projector, it was that long ago.
Yep.
They're
Dating yourself a little bit. That's okay. Yep.
Yeah. This is back in like 2012. And they drew all the different ways you can make money in real estate. They said you could do, rehabbing, so flipping, right? They said you could do landlording, so buying and holding properties, development. You can do creative finance, all these things. And none of those strategies like really hit home with me for where I was at the time. I was kind of like bouncing back from my own setback, had a business that kind of went sideways with a partner. And so I was really starting over from like nothing pretty much. So they drew this one strategy up on the board and they called it wholesaling, right? And what they showed you is how you can get started in real estate with no cash, like, it doesn't matter what your credit score is, right? All you're doing is talking to motivated homeowners, finding the worst house in the best neighborhood, putting a contract on that property, getting a seller to agree to a certain price, for example, say $150,000. And then all you're doing from there is selling that piece of paper to a buyer for what's called an assignment fee. And let's say that buyer buys it for $165,000. So within 2 to 4 weeks, you're collecting that money in the middle, like $15,000. And how they shared you could do this over and over again each month, I was like, man, this makes sense, right? And I looked at my wife and who's my girlfriend at the time, and I was like, this makes sense. And so she agreed. So we spoke to someone in the back of the room. They got us set up. We went to a 3-day boot camp in Miami. And then from there, we hired a coach to clarify some things and get traction. And I'd love to say that, we got a deal right away and everything was fantastic. We left our jobs the next day, but that didn't happen, right?
Right.
Probably made every mistake in the book you could make. And it took us 6 months to do our first deal. And then after we did that deal, the next one came shortly after that. Then we got things pretty consistent. How we got to the virtual side was several years later. So we left our corporate jobs after 3 years of doing this.
Awesome.
But it just got to be kind of too much from the standpoint, like we were going on all these appointments every week. At one point, my wife was going on like 15 appointments a week, right? She'd
Wow.
just come home like exhausted, right? And I would just see it on her face. And I was like, man, there's got to be a better way. So I was thinking like, if we could do this in person, there's no reason why we couldn't do this over the phone, right? Because prior to that, we got a few sellers to agree and did this whole thing without even going to the seller and talking to them in person, right? We got them to agree to a price over the phone, signed a contract, a DocuSign, all that. And then we're like, but why can't we just do that for every transaction? You know? So that's what got the wheels turning. And so from there, we decided to go 100% virtual. And we were very blessed because we were fully settled into this strategy 2 years before COVID, for the pandemic.
Oh,
right?
wow.
So when everybody was losing their mind in real estate, saying, how are we going to make money in real estate? We can't meet sellers in person. Like we can't, show properties to buyers in person. Like how can we make money? Like we were thriving and we had one of like the best years we've ever had.
Wow.
So, so that's how we flipped over to the virtual side. And then in our top month, we had 22 deals under contract, like all virtual, and for picking up the phone, cold call.
Fantastic. That's a great start. And you timed it perfectly. I mean, right before COVID, and everything is, not only has COVID changed it, but the virtual side, the online side, everything has shifted since then anyway. So great timing for that.
Yeah. So before the pandemic, virtual wasn't really a thing. Like it was kind of tough to get sellers like on board with the whole process. But, after the pandemic, like people are getting their groceries delivered now, right?
Yes.
You're having Zillow offers. You're having Open Door, OfferPad, all these services that are completely virtual doing the exact same thing. So it's like the best time that you can ever get into virtual wholesaling like right now.
It's very acceptable. It's not like it's not normal, right, to do virtual stuff. Yeah.
Yes.
That's awesome. Okay. Yep. So how has your faith guided you through your ups and downs of entrepreneurship? You talked about a little bit like took 6 months to get a deal, which is normal for new real estate agents, virtual wholesaling, whatever it is, it's going to take time. So how has your faith really kind of guided you in that process?
Man, I love this question because as an entrepreneur, the highs are the easy part, right? But it's when we're walking through those valleys that we really got to keep our head on straight and not get too emotional, like allow our emotions kind of like take over, because that's when the enemy likes to whisper, right? There's 2 times where the enemy likes to whisper into your mind to heavily influence you, like in the way you shouldn't be going, right? It's when you have nothing and when you have everything, right?
Yeah, that's good.
So,
that's good.
When you're on that path, I like to think of the story in the Bible where, the disciples were in the boat, right? And Jesus was asleep at the bow of the boat, and water started like raging around the boat. It was just crazy, almost like hurricane type weather, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, teacher, don't you care about us? We're all going to die, right? And then Jesus wakes up and he's like, peace be still, right? And then all of a sudden everything calms and the disciples are like, holy moly, this is crazy. Like, how did he just do that, right? So I think about that a lot. And when we're on that path and we're facing the unknown, and the unknown is not knowing what's going to happen next, right? Not seeing the light beam in the tunnel from the actions, the activities we're putting in. I think about the disciples like in that moment and how I can be more like, having 2020, like looking back on that and being like, okay, they got really emotional. They started freaking out, right? But at the end of the day, they were fine because God was with them, right? So that's something I really lean into when I'm on this journey where sometimes things seem a bit uncertain, unknown, and I really don't know what's going to happen next. Another great story in the Bible that I really reflect back on too is Peter, when Jesus asked him to come out onto the water, right? He didn't start to sink until he took his eyes off Jesus. And then once he took his eyes off Jesus, he started to sink, right?
Right.
But once he fixed his eyes back on him, he was lifted back up and placed back on the water in safety. So I feel like as an entrepreneur, being a Christian entrepreneur and fully understanding and having that foundation that everything's going to be okay. The question we can ask ourselves is, how would we act every single day if we knew without a shadow of a doubt that everything was going to be okay all the time?
Right. Yeah.
And when
Yeah.
I
I
started to
love
think
it.
about that, that's
Hmm.
really what shifted for me, and it made that journey a lot easier because it's always been okay. And things never in the back of like things never turn out like in your mind you think like things are going to turn really bad sometimes.
Yeah.
They never turn out
Right.
a- as bad as you think they are, right?
Right.
And you don't die, so you're okay.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. 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 And as Dave Ramsey says, right before you die, you pass out. So there's really no pain, right? That's what his joke
Exactly.
is, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I love that because the truth is, and I began to realize this even the last several months. This is a tough market we're in general real
Yeah.
estate, virtual wholesaling. We can talk about that market too, but I know we're in the same type of it's the real estate market in 2025.
Yeah.
Here's the truth: we really don't have a lot of control over
Yeah.
what happens in our business. I mean, we sow the seeds, we do our part, we make the calls, we make the contacts, we
Yeah.
sow the seed, right? And we ask God
Yes.
to water it and to step out in faith and do it. But we don't know when people are going to list with us, sell with us. We put something under contract, if it's going to fall through with appraisal, with inspections, or we literally don't have as much control as we think we do. So I love that fixing your eyes upon Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, watching God just get this to closing. And that's where I know if you're like me, man, you're praying all the time, and
Yes.
asking God, just Lord, Lord, I have no idea how you can get this to close, but I know you can, and I'll do my part. It's not just faith without works, right? It's both
Yeah.
combined. So I love that, man. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
You brought up such a great point that I couldn't help but like add something to it. Um,
Please.
one of the things that used to stress me out a lot in this business, right? So real estate used to be really stressful for me when I first started because there's so many things you can't control, right? So many
Mm-hmm.
things. Like the property could have title issues. The seller can wake up one day and be like, I know I signed an agreement, but I've decided to go another direction, right?
Right.
Or they
Mm-hmm.
could say like, or this another mortgage could come up on the property that you weren't expecting. There's like so many things that can happen, and I used to stress out, or a buyer could back out, right? And then what I really like, the one mental shift that changed things for me was control the controllables. So to touch on your point, right? I can control the activity that I can put in. I can
Mm-hmm.
control making the offer,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't control if that seller says yes or no. I can't control if
Mm-hmm.
that buyer backs out. I can follow a proven process to minimize
Right.
like bad things happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the
Mm-hmm.
outcomes I can't control. So as an entrepreneur, if we can just focus on taking actions and just releasing the outcome, man, the journey is just so much more easy,
I
and
love
we can
that.
last a lot longer in the game.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. That's good. And that's where we trust Jesus for the outcome, right? And
Totally.
that's a
It's
long
easier
term.
said than done sometimes.
It is. It's always
Yeah,
easier said than done. And we have to just trust the Lord with all the details, right? So
totally.
awesome, man. Like, is there any specific scriptures? We've already actually talked about some scriptures that that's helped you to kind of lead and keeping your eyes upon Jesus and watching him work. So, uh, and here's the thing: we're entrepreneurs, we're driven, we're business people, but how do you balance your ambition? We want to go get it. We want to help a lot of people. We want to serve the Lord by serving other people. How do you balance your ambition and growth while kind of staying grounded in your faith? Like you got that drive, you want to go get it, hit it
Yeah.
hard, and yet trust the Lord and rely on him. How do you kind of balance that and stay grounded?
One of my mentors shared something amazing with me, and he said, "You want to put a cap on your financial aspirations, right?"
Hmm.
So the tendency as an entrepreneur to be always desiring more, more, more. You get to a certain point, now more. When you're like, I'll be happy when I get to this point, and then more, right? So I feel like the way for us to stay grounded in our entrepreneur journey is to place a cap on our financial aspirations, to say like, listen, like I'm going to focus on enjoying the journey, because just like watching a baby grow up, it goes by like that, and one
Yes.
day we're going to be looking back on this journey being like, man, those are the fun times when we were really hustling. We were putting the time in, making those calls. I remember what it was like, and people would say no, but we kept moving forward. And the journey goes by fast. So you got to enjoy the journey, and realize that the goal is who we are going to become in the end as a result of our actions every single day. So the goal is
That's
to
good.
become better every single day. And that's the
Hmm.
gift that we get on the journey. The journey is the destination. right?
That's good.
And if we combine that with saying, okay, we're going to put a cap on our financial aspirations. Like my goal is to have a business that brings in $1 million a year, 2 million, 3 million, 5 million, whatever the case is, but then just stick to that number and not just continuing to desire more, because
That's
that
good.
desire of more constantly, it's like a never ending black hole of activity. You're like, I'm just going to keep pushing. Like, yeah, we'll go on that vacation when I'll spend more time with my family when, but that when never happens because you're always desiring more. And I feel like that is something that the enemy tries to whisper in our mind, like we don't have enough, like we never have enough, right? So the key is, in my mind, and what I took from my mentor's advice was to identify what is enough for me, right? Cap it there. And if I do more than that, fantastic. But if not, like I'm totally and 100% content with where God has me.
I love that. Yeah, that's good, because that needle, that it's going to keep moving. If we don't put a boundary on it, if we don't have a vision for that, it's going to keep moving always, right?
Yeah.
That's human nature. So I love that. My real estate coach says, because when I first started coaching with him about 6 years ago, I asked him, I said, Matt, what about this and that and doing this production? He goes, Brian, life by design. What do you want your life to look like? You go by what you want to do, life by design. Don't worry about anything else, anybody else's numbers. And I love that. So it's like, I know about how many deals I want to do a month and go from there. So yeah, that's awesome, man.
Amazing.
So thanks so much for sharing that, man. That's awesome. I love hearing your faith in the business and how God's given you wisdom and insight with these leaders, these coaches, your mentors. So for those unfamiliar, myself included a little bit, you've kind of touched on virtual wholesaling. Kind of just explain a little bit about how it works and just kind of educate us a little bit. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, great question. So virtual wholesaling works like this. What we are looking for is motivated homeowners, so distressed properties. And behind every distressed property is typically a motivated seller, right? So this could be someone's going through a divorce. This could be someone has recently just gotten older where their property is just too much to take care of, right? This could be someone who thought they wanted to be a landlord, right? Their tenant was bananas. They did an eviction. The property's sitting vacant, and now it's getting code violations against the property every single day. Maybe the seller is showing signs of distress because they're behind on their taxes and they haven't paid their taxes for the property in like 2 or 3 years, right? So these are all indicators of a motivated homeowner. So as a wholesaler, we want to find the worst house in the best neighborhood. So we want to put together marketing to attract or find these homeowners. And the number one way that we do it is by picking up the phone, cold call, right? It is the number one way to build the muscle of consistency in this business and become better over the phone. Everybody sucks over the phone when they first start, right? But the more you do it, the better you get, the more confidence you get, and the more fun things start to be. So now we start to reach out to our homeowners. We find a homeowner, and let's say that homeowner says, I want to sell this property for like $150,000, right? So from there, what we do is we write up a purchase contract, an as-is purchase contract for $150,000, because we know we've already built relationships with buyers that are looking for properties in this area like that. So from there, we know that buyer is willing to pay $165,000. So all we do then is we fill out another piece of paper called an assignment of contract that allows us to sell our contract with that seller to that buyer and collect the money in the middle. And these transactions typically take 2 to 4 weeks. And at closing, we get what's called an assignment fee, which is that gap. So really, we're like matchmakers for buyers and sellers, motivated buyers and sellers.
Yeah, no, that's good. Okay, that makes sense. So, and then so you're cold calling and you're looking for these motivated sellers, these ones who really need to sell. These are they're not on the market, obviously. They're not on MLS. They're off-market properties, correct? Okay.
Yes, we are 100% direct to seller off market. We love that. And the main reason is because a lot of people try to get started making offers to agents and things like that. And while that can be a really profitable way to go, the issue is there's a third party between you and the seller. Right?
Yes.
And so it's always better, and you're always going to get the better terms and price when you're negotiating with the seller directly, because they're not in real estate. They're not looking at comps every single day. They're not looking at, they don't know the cost to fix things in their property, right? They just need out, right? And I feel like, and so that's always going to be the best way to go, because you can also target like specific motivation, like vacant properties. You can look at properties where there's code violations against the property, things like that, right? And you can really position yourself to be a blessing to people in a time of need.
Yeah, because they're scared to reach out because they feel bad, they feel guilty, remorseful, right?
Yeah.
They don't want to raise their hand sometimes and even hire a traditional agent because they're thinking, I can't, there's some shame involved, I'm sure, in some cases, right?
Man,
And so you have to kind of work through that.
Yeah, because there's only two reasons why a seller will, because there's only two reasons why a seller will work with a wholesaler, right?
Okay.
And it's speed and convenience, right? Speed, they can close in as little as 2 to 4 weeks, right? Convenience, they don't have to get the house show ready. They don't have to sweep the house, get it ready for a bunch of showings and people to come through and things like that. And to your point, there's a bit of shame involved with how much they've let the house go, right?
Yeah.
So as a wholesaler, we tell the seller, hey, listen, take what you want, leave the rest, and we'll take care of the cleanup. No worry, it doesn't matter, right? And really, it's our buyers that take care of the cleanup and all that when they buy the property. But but yeah, so it's an as is, where is sale. And the majority of the properties we target are not the same type of property that a realtor would want to go after for a listing. Usually realtors like kind of avoid these types of properties because they're not pretty houses. They're ugly houses usually. And realtors like listing pretty houses. And as a wholesaler, if you come across a house like that, we'll even tell the seller, hey, listen, based on the price you're looking to get and based on the condition of your house, you have a beautiful home. Why wouldn't you just list it with a realtor? You'll make more money, you know?
Right.
And so we let them make that decision.
That's good. Yeah. So you're kind of looking for the ugly duckling a little bit, somewhat, right? Not always, but sometimes, right? Because you know there's a story behind that.
Yes.
There's circumstances behind that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's always some type of motivation behind a property's condition. And a really good indicator as far as the condition of the property, the inside, is like what the outside looks like. So if you can see the property's really distressed on the outside, maybe pulling it up on Google Maps or something, then you get a good idea as far as what the condition is on the inside.
That's good. Yeah. And usually if it's not looking good on the outside, the curb appeal, usually the inside is not much different, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So what made you go into wholesaling versus like traditional real estate? Have you tried both, or you just liked, the virtual wholesaling versus traditional, or what do you think about that?
Like listings?
Yeah. Like I say traditional, like, listing, like you said, well kept up properties. Like we like the polished ones sometimes, right? What made you choose it? I mean, anything specific, or just that's the way you felt like the Lord led you?
Well, it's kind of funny because when I first started in this business, I actually was going to get into commercial real estate. I was going to be a commercial realtor, right? Commercial listing agent. And I was going to go work for this gentleman who lived in this like penthouse, and it was crazy. Like he had his own brokerage that he rented out his penthouse. And at the time I was working for another company, and he's like, listen, he's like, you come work for me. I'm going to give you $100,000. You're going to hit those phones. And he's like, we're going to blow this brokerage up. And so I was like, let's do it. Because I found him through a cold call. So that's why I guess he saw potential, right?
Nice.
And so I went and got my real estate license. I studied my pants off while working 60 to 80 hours a week at my corporate job that I had at the time. And then I get my license. I walk into his penthouse, and he says, and he says, all right, let's go ahead and get started. And I said, okay, where's the $100,000? And he goes, oh, I'm not gonna give you $100,000. He's like, I'll give you $100,000 if you sell the property. I'm like, oh, whoa, that's not exactly what we spoke about, Yeah. And so, long story short, I was like, I'm out of here. We're not starting off on the right foot, right? So I left that, and that's where I had my real estate license already, but I just was never really drawn to that side, right? Of showing properties to sellers and buyers. I was always more drawn to the logical side, which is the investing side, because you're not saying, oh, this is the kitchen, this is the bathroom. Like it's all about the numbers. And that's really and with that. And also my family, when I was a little kid, we went through a foreclosure. And so I thought to myself, when I got into this, like, I'm going to like help people to where they don't have to go through those things if we can help it, That's awesome. And so I've always been drawn to like the distress side because of that.
Yeah. I mean, it's always like, it's part of our story, right? I mean, that's part of your story. with that. And my father was a builder for 30
Yeah.
years, a production builder here in Polk County. So I've,
Yeah.
not that I just do new homes, I do both, but it's just like whatever your story is, you just kind of
Yeah.
feel like that's your wheelhouse. Like
Totally. Yeah. I couldn't
I
agree
love new
more.
homes and I
Yeah.
grew up in it. So I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, I can tell you all the advantages of a new home.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's how God, he always weaves these things in our life like a tapestry, right? Together.
Yes.
Like, and then he kind of puts it all together and that's part of his calling in our life.
Mm-hmm.
Our pastor's been talking about that a lot because you can have a calling, you can serve at church, but man, we're
Yep.
serving the marketplace, which is a wide open sphere, which is awesome,
Yes.
which I
Totally.
love.
Yep.
So, by the way, so you're making the calls yourself, or do you have a virtual assistant who makes the calls, or both, or just more curious?
Yeah. So when I first got started in this business, I was doing everything myself. My wife and I started it together, and over 12 years ago, and we start out making calls to sellers and buyers ourselves. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Over time, we grew a team and grew our business to over 7 figures, and that was when the only way to increase past a certain point was to have other people on our team. So now we have an entire team that is talking to
Mm-hmm.
sellers every single day, putting deals under contract, getting deals sold, and we that's just kind of the direction we chose. I feel like when you get into wholesaling, you have two different directions you can go, right? The
Yeah,
first
yeah,
direction you can go is you can say, I'm going to use this to stack some cash, and I'm going to take that cash, I'm going to invest it long term, and like grow a portfolio. And then there's the other side where you could say, you know what, I really see the potential in this wholesaling thing. It's making us a phenomenal income. I want to grow this with a team, kind of like as a realtor. You can grow a team the same
yes,
way to where you're not
yes,
involved in the listing conversations.
right,
We're not involved in the buyer and seller conversations. And then from there,
yeah,
deals are just kind of done on our behalf, right? And
mm-hmm.
that's
Mm-hmm.
provided a fantastic lifestyle for my wife and I. And
Mm.
that's really what triggered us to want to like coach other people and show them how to do this business, because we've seen the life change that it's made for us, and like we're really
Yeah,
passionate about helping other people get into it too.
I love it. You're leveraging yourself, man. That you've got
Yeah,
to grow. You have to do that, right?
have to.
So
Yep.
that's awesome, man. So for someone just starting off, for our listeners, what are 3 steps you would say they should take to kind of succeed in virtual wholesaling? What are some easy steps for us?
Yeah, great question. So the first step is to identify the right territory, right? So first of all, to identify an area that's good for wholesaling, you want to look at 2 things, right? I have a simple 2-step system for identifying the hottest territories across the country. Cool if we dive into
Mm-hmm.
that?
Yeah, please do. Yes,
Awesome.
yes.
So the
I'm
first
taking
step,
notes. I'm going to listen to this again. This is really good. Thank you.
awesome, yeah. So the first step is you want to go to Google and you want to type in the county that you're looking to start in. See, I think a lot of people have some type of area in the back of their mind, whether it's their hometown, whether it's a state that they were like, I have friends or family there, I want to go there. So usually people have a place, generally speaking, in the back of their mind where like they want to start, right? So you select a county, and then you take that county, you put it into a Google search, and you type in that county. So for example, Polk County population size, right? And then that's going to kick back the population size. And what you're looking for is a minimum population size of 250,000 people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you have a minimum population size of 250,000 people, that is a territory that's big enough for buyers to constantly be moving into the territory, sellers to want to be selling, and really it's kind of like a major metro area. You're not looking at
Okay.
rural territories, and we just found if you go below 250,000 people, you're looking at more like a rural type of territory, right?
Okay.
The
All right.
second step for selecting the hottest territories is going to Google again and typing in Polk, like the county, like Polk County median home price. So for those listening who don't know what that is, the median home price, if you picture homes on a timeline with $50,000 and less house on the left and multi-million-dollar house on the right, the median is the one in the middle. It's the most common type of house that's being bought and sold, the house that everybody wants and can afford. So
Mm-hmm.
for that, you're going to type in, like I said, Polk County median home price, and it's going to kick back with a Zillow page that's going to tell you what the median home price is for that area. You want a median home price of between $200,000 and $450,000. What we found, any less, it's more of like a rural territory, easy to get sellers to say yes, harder to get buyers. And if it's beyond 450,000, that's where it's going to be really tough to get deals under contract. You're going to have more kind of savvy sellers where there's not as much distress, and people are going to know the values of their homes. They're going to want to go the traditional route and so on, right? So
Good.
that bracket of 200 to 450,000 is really where we find we get the most deals.
Okay. Yeah. And our average price range, I can tell you through Lakeland Association of Realtors, is 350 from January of this year to June is 349 and some change. So it's 350.
Yep. So that's a great territory to wholesale in. Now, the second step, because we talked about 3 steps, right? So the second step, once you've identified your territory, from there, we use what's called the FYBF method. FYBF means find your buyer first. See, a lot of wholesalers, when they first come into this business, they are doing it backwards. They're told if they find a good deal, it'll sell itself. But the problem is most wholesalers don't know what a good deal is. So like, how could it sell itself, right? So what we do is we show people how to grow a massive buyers list fairly quickly, right? Once they have that buyers list, from there, they take what the buyers want, the buyer's needs. They kind of tell them, have that conversation of what that looks like. They use that information, that intel, to build their marketing plan. So like to pull their lists and start calling on sellers, right?
Okay.
They're going to find a property that matches that buyer's criteria. They're going to put it under contract and bring it to them. And when they do that, wholesaling becomes so much easier, right? So that's the second step. The third step is from there, again, picking up the phone and start talking with sellers, having conversations, I firmly believe that contacts lead to contracts. So the more contacts you make, the more contracts you're going to get. Anytime that someone comes up to me and says, Chris, I don't know what's going on, I'm not getting deals, I ask them, how many offers did you make last month? And they're like, well, I made like 1 or 2. That's why you're not getting deals. Contacts lead to contracts.
That's good. Oh, I love that, man. That's good. Okay. Very interesting. Okay. And so that's how really the best way to identify those markets. You can do that anywhere, right? Literally, anywhere. You name it. Yep. So no matter what city. Go ahead,
certain
please.
States, right? So there's a lot of regulation that's come to wholesaling in the last couple of years. Prior to 2 years ago, wholesaling was kind of like the Wild West. There was like no regulations on it whatsoever. You could do deals anywhere, right? Now in the last 2 years, there has been regulations that have come on to wholesaling because there's some people out there that are doing it the wrong way, and kind of like when one person ruins it for the whole classroom type of thing, right? Right. So now there's certain states where you actually have to have a real estate license to be able to wholesale. Okay. There's some states where you have to disclose certain things to the seller. There's certain states where you have to disclose certain things to the buyer. And then there's also certain states where you have to disclose certain things in your marketing, right? So it really comes down to 3 things. Does it require a real estate license? What do you have to disclose to the seller? And what do you have to put in your marketing when you're marketing these investment properties? The great news is you can find this information out by either 1, hiring a coach, or number 2, you can find out by talking with a local real estate attorney just to make sure you don't land yourself in hot water by mistake.
That's good. Hey, have you found that the whole new rule change with the buyer's broker agreement, the new compensation last fall, and I know that's not one of our questions, but we're trying to talk about today's times, right? What's going on?
I love this question, but go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so, I've been doing this 30 years and there's always changes, right? There's going to be changes in the wholesaling business, 5 years, 10 years. It's just part of, and you've got to be able to roll with it or else you're going to die. You're going to go out of business. Just like now, if you're not doing things like we're doing, social media, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever, good luck, because nobody's going to be able to find you. But side note, I trained some new agents and I'm like, you've got to be able to be found online. Because people are going to interview you, and guess what they're going to go do? They're going to Google you, and if they can't find you, I'm sorry, good luck. But that's going to be really tough. So back to the question: how has the new law that was passed last fall for a nationwide audience? How has that changed your business, if any?
So it hasn't changed our business really, because you're either wholesaling in a state that requires a license or a state that it doesn't, right? So when it comes to states to wholesale, we recommend focusing on red states. not leaning any which way politically, but
Sure.
like we focus on red states because
Yes.
typically everything's easier in red states, right? It's going to
Go
be
Florida.
Yes,
No.
exactly. You'll have title companies not necessarily using attorneys to close deals, so title companies are just much easier.
Yes.
And a lot of the red states typically don't require a real estate license to wholesale. So that's that. But to answer your question on the flip side with the buyers commission changing and all that stuff, I actually love it because for two reasons. One, it's directing more people towards wholesaling, and then number two, like having realtors who are already listing properties like leverage their skill and like adding wholesaling like is another income stream, right?
That's good.
So where
yeah.
at that point, like they have equitable interest. They have a property under contract. They have a deposit down, a small deposit down, and they have control over that property. So they can sell that contract to a buyer and they can make whatever they want to make, right? So, so when it comes to how it affects realtors, I think this is actually a good thing because people get lazy over time, right?
Right.
And there's a lot of buyers agents that would promise the world like I'll get your property sold. They put a sign in the front yard, and then that's it. They don't do anything, you know.
Right. Right.
So I feel like getting a home buyer to put an agreement in writing ahead of time before they start that process, it's only going to help them. It's a little bit of a headache for people who don't position it the right way, but it's going to protect their time and prevent them from showing like 5 different houses and then the person being like, I've changed my mind and now it's not really now's not what I'm looking at. I'm not looking to buy.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
like you said, adapt or die, right?
You have to.
We got to adapt.
We have to adapt. And I think what you just said, I'm telling you, the people who are skilled, who are not slick, who are not illegal. I'm talking about the people who have skills, who know how to communicate with people, who know how to overcome objections, and who just have some experience are succeeding in this business. The realtors that just think it's order takers, those days are gone. And I'm glad, man. Those people need to be out of the business. I don't wish ill will on anybody. Don't hear that. But the people who are just in it to make a quick buck, not really protect the clients, and not really know how to handle people and communication, but just think about getting the commission check. We really don't want them in the business. And I know you don't want that either in your business because the short-term approach is never going to work in this business.
Yes.
So
that is
71
the same exact thing on the wholesale side.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, and I can tell as you're explaining this, in the general real estate field, 71% of the realtors last year did not sell one property. 71%. And I think it's about the same this year. And again, I say that only because like we have to adapt as professionals, real estate, wholesaling, or realtors, same pretty much thing, is we want to be able to help people and just learn the rules, the laws, and really look out for their interest, not just for our interest, right?
I totally agree. Yeah. Like if you're doing this business the right way, you're fully committed to it. This real estate, regardless which way you go, whether it's wholesaling and it's listings, is a beautiful opportunity. And if you can be a good steward of that opportunity and really show up every single day and give it your all, you can have whatever lifestyle that you want.
Yes. Yeah, you can, because you come from the position of really just truly helping people.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you really do. So, totally, and I think your business, where you're coming from, helping distressed properties, divorce, this and that, man, that's a real ministry because you're seeing some of the tougher circumstances. So, so let me ask you this. So how do you handle challenges or setbacks in your business while maintaining faith, really, and just kind of persevering through it out? How do you personally handle that, or some of your people on your team?
Yeah. So when it comes to setbacks, I firmly believe that rejection makes you rich, right? So when a seller says no, that's feedback, that's intel that you can use to become better and handle the next sale or the next conversation much better, right? So that's kind of like how I view rejection. So knowing that, there are days when you get more rejection than others, right? Like sometimes, like there's days where you can do no wrong, and then other days you feel like you can't close a window, right? And on those days, I feel like it's really important to remember and to have perspective, right? Because things are never as bad as we think they are. right?
Mm.
And failure is a tool for education and for us to learn to become better and actually get better results if we only listen to it. Where I feel
It's good.
like that the average person struggles with this is they're not looking at rejection makes you rich. They're looking at rejection like they're rejecting me personally, like and they're
Right.
taking it too personal, right?
Yes.
So, and then from there, they're not being observant to where like what went wrong in the conversation and being self-aware. They're more so like, oh, victim mentality. Oh, another cancellation or another guy's and
Right.
you know. And
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
problem is that's going to come through thoughts, actions, results, right? That's going to come through the
Mm.
triad there. And
Yeah.
if we're not careful with what we say, like that can lead to results that we don't want. So it's all about controlling your thoughts. You know, you
Mm.
can do all things through Christ who gives you strength, having that be
Amen.
the foundation. And then from
Yes.
there, moving forward with that and just realizing that everything's going to be cool. And if things don't
Yep.
go the way you want them to, there's a reason you can learn and you can move forward.
I love that, man. That's real. Rejection makes you rich. That's really, really good, right? John Maxwell talks about failing forward, right? I
Yes.
mean, this is what you have to learn. So I love
Yeah.
that. Man, that great nuggets, man. I'm loving this. This is really a good conversation. There's so much you're dropping here. Just a couple more things. So, what advice would you give some entrepreneurs looking to build a faith-centered business? Because, and I really admire and appreciate how God has blessed you and your family, and how you're doing this to honor Him, and how you're building a team. Because I believe you're building your influence and you're spreading, influence for Jesus by doing this. Because I know even from our conversation that you're doing this the right way. Nobody's perfect. None of us are perfect, right? But we're just trying to honor God with our business, and you're leading, I'm sure, with your team down. So, what advice would you give? Hey, people thinking about getting in this business, or somebody who's really trying to lock in with Christ and follow their calling, and maybe wants to get into your business, your space.
Yeah. So it all comes down to how I view my faith, right? Not everybody views faith the same way. Some people view as they go to church on Sunday and they hear a message, they feel good, and then they come home and that's where it ends, right?
Right.
And then from there, it doesn't influence like how they act or how they treat people, situations. And the thing that I've learned on my journey as a Christian is people are watching you all the
Mm-hmm.
time.
Yeah.
Especially when you say that you're a Christian, people
Yes.
really watch you because
Mm-hmm.
some people are waiting for you to fail so they can see, I told you so. He's not as good as he says he is, right?
Right.
Other people are just observing to see what makes you different, right?
Mm-hmm.
I used to think to lead more people to Christ, I had to like really like sit down with people and be like, hey, how's your faith walk going? What's going on? Right. I wanted the full
Right.
conversion, right? I wanted to
Yeah.
be the one to lead to Christ.
Yeah.
But what I've realized is the best testimony that you can give is how you lead your daily life. Everything from business decisions you make, relationships you develop, how you like crisis reveals character, right? So if a business
Mm.
deal goes sideways, like, are you still acting like a Christian, like in that moment? Like, are you still committed to like being different or acting different?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you going to curse the guy out? You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
Right.
it comes back to the story in the Bible with the house that was built on the sand and the one that was built on the rocks, right? The one that
Mm-hmm.
was built on the
Mm-hmm.
rocks and the winds and the sand, the winds and the water came, like the house stood strong, right? So
Yeah.
that's our foundation in Christ that we have to lay down first, and we have to commit to doing things different, right?
Mm-hmm.
But on the flip side, the house that was built on sand, it washed away. So that's like
Right.
people who build a business without that foundation in Christ. Like
Mm.
it's not going to be permanent because they're going to be focusing on the wrong things. The business becomes their idol. Money becomes never enough.
Mm.
Their ego gets
Mm-hmm.
inflated, and pride comes
Mm.
before the fall all the time, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So that's how, in my mind, how I've done things and how I've committed to doing things. Like I commit to doing things differently because of the commitment that I've made, right, as a Christian. And
Mm-hmm.
everything that I do, like I have my bad days like anybody else, but I try to
Hmm.
make sure that everything I do kind of flows from that, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
I love that. Your foundation, yeah, it's built on Jesus. It's built on that relationship. And like you said, whenever a deal goes sideways, because it's not if a deal goes sideways, it's
When,
when, right? And I think of this, we get shaken up, right?
yeah,
Whenever we get shaken up, because we're going to what comes out if we're filling our bottle with the Word of God, with prayer, with fellowship, with worship at church. If we're filling it, when it gets shaken up, what's going to come out? Hopefully, Jesus. And
yes,
I'm reminding myself, but yet if we're
that's
filling
a
it
great
up with the
analogy.
Word of God and everything else, hopefully the Holy Spirit comes out. And it's man, it's a trial and a test for all of us because we're never going to
Yes,
be perfect, but we just do our best.
yep,
But yeah, and agents are watching us. You're
yes,
exactly right, and our
and
name is
eventually,
everything.
yeah, and eventually, what's really cool is people watch you for so long, and I've had this happen. I've had this happen several times, where people like watch you, and then
Hmm.
one day they just come up to you and be like, "Hey, man, like I've been watching you, and I want to let you know that I recently started going to church this past weekend, and you were a big inspiration for that." And you never even know. Like
Right.
I've had people that I haven't talked to in three
Hmm.
years come up to me and say this, and
Yeah.
that right there is like the ultimate sale. That's like
Yes. Yeah.
having someone,
Hmm.
because it's
Mm.
always our goal as Christians to model Christ and live like Christ. We don't do it right all the time, and a lot of times we jack it up, right?
Sure.
But
Sure.
for someone to see how you're different and to see how your life is different and have them desire that change and then pursue that, I mean that's awesome.
That's what it's all
That's
about.
what it's all
Because at
about.
the end of the day, God's using virtual wholesaling, God's using
Yeah,
general real estate that we can be his instrument of his glory.
totally.
So we can have those conversations. Yeah. When somebody comes up and just like organically says that to you, you're like, all right, Lord, I'm good. I'm good. I'm
Yeah.
done. Let's just,
Yep.
let's just call it a day because that is
Yeah.
the ultimate and you get the glory, God, not me, right back
Yeah.
to you. But
Totally.
that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome, man. Um, okay, well, hey, so just two more questions and then we'll be done, man. What's one piece of advice you give to listeners who want to grow both spiritually and professionally? You said a lot. You may have already answered this, but kind of one piece of advice for you that God has really worked for you spiritually and professionally,
Um,
besides building
spiritually,
your foundation. You talked about that. Anything else you want to
yeah.
add to that?
For sure. Yeah. When it comes to growing your faith spiritually, the biggest thing is, like the Bible says, to meditate morning and night on the book of the law. And
Mm,
if you do that, then you're going to be successful in what you do. Doesn't necessarily mean monetary success. It means that things are things are going to are going to work out in the end one way or the other, right? And so
hmm.
something that's really helped for me is to do my morning Bible study and then also reading the Bible before I go to bed. And that's
Yes.
something that really helps lay that foundation, continually bringing you back, reminding you that anybody who's ever followed Christ has gone through ridicule, struggles,
Hmm.
persecution, you name it,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
All the stuff that we experience every day as an entrepreneur, right?
Hmm.
But to remember that God is our fortress,
Mm.
and by trusting in Him, we're always going to be okay. Like that
Yeah.
gives me the motivation to get up every single day and try again,
Mm.
you know?
Amen.
And then from a business side, um, having mentors who have gone where you want to go, right? Are living the life that you want to live and being in proximity with them to where you can ask your questions, you can find out like how to avoid certain mistakes. So you don't have to go through the mistakes on your own. Like those are two keys I really feel like that really lay that foundation strong so you can achieve whatever desired level of success you desire.
Well, that's awesome, man. Thank you, brother. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Praise God. Well, hey, man, I have enjoyed our time together and love just hearing your testimony, how God's working in your business. You've really helped, I think, our listeners and our viewers a lot. And how can they connect with you to learn more about your journey, virtuals wholesaling? I'm going to link everything below so they can get in
Yeah.
touch with you. But anything you want to just point out, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, for sure. So the best way to learn about virtual wholesaling is by follow me on Facebook. My username is Chris Logan REI, and I'm sure Brian will put that in the show notes below. but there's a link on my page where you can join my free Facebook group, Virtual Wholesaling Made Simple. So go ahead and click that, join the group, and we do free weekly trainings every single week on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. EST. And we show you a different part of the business, answer your questions, and help you get started the right way so you can start doing deals from home anywhere in the country.
That's awesome. That's awesome, Chris. Well, man, you've been fantastic. I really appreciate you hanging out today. And to all those people who are listening, do me a favor, comment below, share this episode, like it, subscribe to our page, jump on, connect with Chris. He's a valuable resource spiritually and professionally. And so I just encourage you to hang out with Chris. And thank you so much for tuning in. God bless.
Thanks, Brian.